Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daphne Cook, and you are joining us live from MCC North Express. Thank you for joining us for our Home Instead Aging Well series. Today we are talking about older workers and the labor force. So older workers play an important part in the labor force, and employers are taking notice. The Bureau of Labor Statistics says that this is the fastest growing part of the labor force and will continue to be until 2024. So what exactly does it mean for our seniors? Well, here to talk about that, we have some experts, Shan Wilkins from Home Instead, and then also we have Skylar Roberts from Home Instead. Thank you for joining us today to provide some perspective. I just also want to mention that if at any time anyone has any questions or comments, just go ahead and throw them into the chat, because the chat is being monitored, and we have saved a little bit of time at the end to answer your questions. Shan, Skylar, thank you so much.
Sure.
So we have these older workers who are in the workforce, and employers are finding these workers pretty attractive. So
Pretty valuable. It's the largest population, aging adults, to hire right now at the workforce. So yeah, they are very attractive, especially in the state of Nebraska, because we've always had a relatively lower unemployment. And so, yeah, it's work.
So it's taking these skills and these years of experience and translating them and using them in a different way.
Exactly. In every career, you learn people skills, you learn communication skills, you learn all kinds of skills, and you can apply them after you retire from your first career. So.
Now, it looks like there's a variety of reasons why people might want to consider working. For example, maybe they just don't want to work full-time anymore.
Right. So we were just talking about this. You know, I remember my grandfather retired at 55, and that's not going to happen for my group, my age, but he had a part-time job for years after he retired from a government job. I think he worked until he was like 65, and he did carpenter work because that's what he liked as a hobby when he worked. So, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, well, it's also an opportunity for someone to explore maybe something they're passionate about and didn't have the opportunity to try when they were younger.
Yeah, I tell people if you're looking for part-time work or full-time work and you've retired, don't be afraid. If you always wanted to work in the legal field, don't be afraid to apply for like a law secretary, or if you wanted to work in a hospital and you see a phlebotomist, don't be afraid to apply for those jobs, because especially in Nebraska, our unemployment rate is so low, employers are willing to train. And it's more about not necessarily a college degree either, but experience and the type of person you are, and reliability and honesty and compassion and those types of things. Employers are, I think, valuing more now than they ever have before.
Well, and there's even an opportunity. I mean, it's even a time to exploring going back to school.
Yeah, you have the time. I remember being young, I just didn't have the time. And I know a lot of older adults that, they go back and get a 4-year degree, because as we get older, we understand more that time goes fast. It doesn't really go slow. And so if you're 62, you have a college degree by 64 if you do a fast one. So yeah, don't be afraid to go get a college degree either.
Well, at MCC, we have a program called MCC Explore, and what it really is for that aging population, age 55 and over. And so there's just so many different ways to explore what you might be interested in. And some people are looking to enhance skills that they never tried before, or potentially explore passion, credit, non-credit. It's just a really fun way to jump in and try something that you might have wanted to but didn't have the opportunity to.
And I think as we get older too, I absorb more of what I'm learning than I did when I was younger. And I don't know if that's for everybody, but a lot of people I talk to, they have more patience for studying, and they value it more. They're not have a ton of activities to go to, and the priorities are different. So yeah, I'm looking forward to more education when I eventually retire.
So when we're looking at this age group, older workers, there can be this pros and cons, retiring, not retiring. What are some of those factors that you find that seniors are looking into, debating on working, not working, retiring, not retiring?
So I think people are looking at what they have saved, their Social Security, their IRAs, their 401ks. They're educating themselves more on what inflation will be as they grow older, and do they need to work, do they not need to work? And there's a ton of websites out there that help with retirement calculators. Schwab has one. Mainly any investment group, you can go on their website and they'll have an income calculator. For Social Security, I was pretty impressed with their website. I used it yesterday, and it's very user-friendly, and it will tell you the different amount of Social Security that you can collect up until, so if you were born after 1960, in order to collect all your Social Security benefits, you can't collect 100% of them till you're 67. And there's no benefit to not collecting your Social Security after 70. So, but if you say you're just tired and you're like, I don't want to work full time, you can start to collect those benefits, I want to say at 62. But you take a penalty in the amount of the benefit you can collect. I think it's like you get 40 or 30, 40, 50, but you can't collect 100% of it until you're 67. So I think people take all those factors into consideration when they decide, can I stop working full-time and just work part-time, or can I just stop working at all? And then we're also seeing the aging adult who thought they had enough saved, and they're realizing people are living longer, so they're working part-time just to make sure that they don't go through all of their savings. So, and there's, you look at your mortgage payment and your budget and all those types of things too. And what do you want to do when you retire? So all those factors into when you want to retire and what determines if you're going to work full-time, part-time, that type of thing.
Well, that tool you mentioned is pretty invaluable. It's a free resource.
Mm-hmm.
I went on there and looked at it. I get this piece of paper in the mail. I'm like, what is this? Social
Right.
Security, I'm retiring. But I actually went to the website and used it, and it was very easy to use, and it was great to have the numbers. It felt really empowering to have the numbers instead of having it be something that was just abstract.
Yeah, and I liked how it shows you your income from the first time you filed taxes. And so I have seen all the years I have worked and how the Social Security benefit would increases for me as I got done with college and got more of a professional career and that type of thing. But I liked how it's easy. It tells you what your income was, and then you go to the calculator. It tells you, I believe it's a month before you're ready to retire, you should apply for benefits. It explains that at 65 you're eligible for Medicare. So I thought it was great. And it explains, like, I didn't know you pay taxes on your Social Security check. I was like, what? But you do. So you don't get, if it says you collect $2,300 a month, you're going to pay taxes out of that. So you have to factor in those things. And it also explains that if you are working, so if you're collecting Social Security before 67, your income is that you gain is deducted from your Social Security check. And they pay you ahead. So sometimes seniors have found that they've had to actually pay back because they've made too much money. So it's real important, I think, to use the website, but it's very user-friendly. And so I really recommend people go out and use it, because it is empowering, because then you can plan. You know what you're going to do.
Well, when I was looking at the website, one of the things that I found interesting is right there in black and white, it said that Social Security is only supposed to pay for 40% of what you plan to retire on. And so once again, it was just empowering to know, okay, so if Social Security is 40%, then you really want to start looking at what you're saving and how much you're going to have for retirement. And that tool does help you project as well.
It does. And we were talking about this earlier too, there's a gap. So about knowledge, when I was younger, if I would have known the benefits to a military career and a pension, I would have done that, but I didn't know about those things. However, with empowering yourself the younger you are to look at your Social Security benefits and know that that's only going to be 40%, you still have time, like we said, to go back to school, get that degree, or work part-time and pick a career. The second career is something that you want to do and you enjoy doing, so that you can gain what the other, is it 60% that you need for retirement.
So do pensions affect your retirement?
They do, and the website explains it. They do. They can decrease the amount of your full benefit for as long as, I believe, that you collect the pension. And pensions are very different. It just depends on what entity you're getting the pension from. Some pensions, if you collect, like Social Security, if you collect it sooner, you don't collect as much. And so I just recommend, if you have a pension, you go to that organization and get the guidelines on when you can collect it, at what percentage and what levels. And then you do have to report that income to Social Security as well. So
if someone is utilizing that tool and they get the hard numbers, they might be wondering if they're close to retirement. Is it too late to save? Is it too late to plan?
No, never. In fact, I know a lot of people that with Social Security, it does you no good not to, if you are 70 years old, you should be collecting your Social Security. So I know people who have used the website and taken all their savings into account, and they plan on working until 67. And so, but they know how much they need, and they've calculated all their savings, so they have planned it out. Does that answer the question? Yeah. So it's like you said earlier, it's just empowering. You know how long you're going to have to work, but if they, especially, if they can take another career and they can afford to take another career, you can do that at like 55 if you decide, I can afford it. I want to go to college, and I want to be a nurse, or I want to be a lawyer. They can do that too, especially with grants and stuff out there. I'm finding there's more opportunities for aging adults just as much as there is for a younger person.
Well, and companies right now some companies are making adjustments because this is a big labor force, and they are making changes to make things that would be attractive for an older worker. Consulting, part-time hours, the ability to have say but maybe not be directly responsible. Right,
flexible schedules. We have people that are snowbirds, so they may work for us, what would you say, Sky, in the summer to early fall, and then at Homestead they may take a 3-month leave because they go to Arizona or they go to Florida, but when they come back, then we put them right back into their schedule. So I think employers are becoming more flexible for aging adults and older adults that, they only want to work 3 months out of the year, or maybe it's 6 months, and maybe they want to take a month off because it's around Christmas time and they want to do all those things with their grandkids and stuff. So yeah, employers are valuing the life experience that aging adults can bring to the workforce, and they are also respecting that they have to be flexible with them.
Now, Skylar, you are the recruitment and engagement coordinator at Home Instead. So what does that mean, and what do you do?
I hire and recruit for our caregivers, and so I'm really just spending most of my days interviewing and getting people on the phone to see how interested they are and what they want to do, what hours they want to work and such.
Well, Shan had mentioned that you have snowbirds, so you're dipping into this aging population as well?
Yeah, I mean, anybody can be a caregiver. If you're 19 years of age or older, we're happy to interview you and see what you're interested in. We just require you work a minimum of 15 hours a week, which I noticed a lot of the snowbirds really do enjoy that. And then they take a leave of absence to do their thing, and they come back and just put them right back into those schedules like they were.
And I think there's a lot of misgivings about in-home caregivers. We match our clients at Home Instead with the caregiver, so they have similar interests. They build very long-term relationships. We have caregivers that maybe the client has passed away, but they still have a relationship with the client's family because they become so close. We were leaving the office today to head here, and it was just very touching. One of our caregivers is a retired nurse, and she was bringing in a client to see us who had just got his first vaccination, and he's 102 years old.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah. So, and then they'll probably go to lunch. So you're not sitting in somebody's home just watching them. Mm-hmm. You're engaging with them. You're doing things with them. We have caregivers and clients that they go to church together, and then they go shopping. Or in the summer, I had a caregiver, her and her client always went to lunch on Wednesdays, and then they went to the park. Mm-hmm. And they people watched, and they enjoyed that. So it's not a boring job. It's very rewarding, and it gives as much as you put into it. You can get a lot out of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about surprises because, as we talked about before, when you're doing anything, when you're in transition, something's new. Often with the new season in life, there are surprises. So when I was researching for today's event, I found some information that said that the Social Security Board of Trustees thinks that they will be able to pay benefits until 2035. Mm-hmm. And then in 2035, Social Security will be able to pay about $790 for every $1,000 of the benefits scheduled. So this is affecting these Gen Xers and the people.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember growing up and always hearing, I don't know if Social Security is going to be around?
Yeah.
So many factors are going to play into that. So what I would recommend is whatever party line you fall on, you know what your representative, how they feel about Social Security. And because the government does tap that budget for other things, they've been known to do that. And so it's good to really educate yourself about what your politician, your representative, feels about Social Security, and are they going to safeguard it for all ages? Because if they don't continue to feed that fund with our Social Security taxes, that's exactly what's going to happen. And that's the prediction now. When they did that calculation in my research, they're accounting for all the times that budgeting has been redirected. So we pay a Social Security tax, but that doesn't always mean that it isn't taken out for something else. So that's why that's the way it is. I've heard all kinds of things where they've talked about privatizing Social Security. I think that's why the 401ks are more flexible, and they came up with 401ks, and I really recommend people talk to a financial advisor. And financial advisors too, at this point, you don't have to have, it used to be, you had to have a minimum of $100,000. That's not the way it is. A lot of financial advisors want to talk to everybody. So I really recommend that as soon as you can, you talk to financial advisors, because you may not think you have assets, but you probably do. And so, but yeah, that's a pretty scary, 2035 is not very far away. We're already 2021, so what is that, like 13 years?
Yeah, it's not far away at all.
Yeah, and it'll be here quick. So yeah, it's pretty scary.
Another consideration would be to budget on your after tax versus your before tax. So really it's looking at that bottom line versus your top line.
Right.
So your top line is how much money you think you're bringing in, but really you have to look at how much do you get to keep.
Yeah, and planning on savings, once again, you can sit down and just, every penny adds up, but, and find accounts that have larger interest bearing. I mean, I'm not a financial advisor, so make sure you talk to one, but really, is your 401k diversified at a young age? I guess you want it very diversified, and then an advisor will take you through the steps of how not, when to kind of tone it down so it's more conservative. But yeah, so you can't depend on Social Security. You should be aware of it. You should use that website, but I've been told by some people they don't even add it into the equation in their retirement.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's a government program, and so you just can't rely on it. You don't have any control.
So really, when considering retiring, looking at your expenses and will they be covered?
Right. And you'll have Medicare, and that's at 65. And so when you sit down to enroll in Medicare, there's a lot of different plans and options available. So I would take the time to also research that, because the biggest expense for an individual's income is their house and then their health insurance. And so when you go to enroll in Medicare, I would just recommend you really don't be afraid to ask questions. We've paid into Social Security, we've paid into Medicare, so this is a benefit for us. And consumers should no question is stupid, and if they have it, they should ask it. Because your insurance benefits affect your income greatly. And so, you should educate yourself, but at the same time, don't plan on Social Security, and budget for you can look at a calculator for car insurance. If you're going to buy a new car, depending on the car and your age, they can tell you what your insurance is going to be. And so I tell consumers all the time, think about those things. You're probably not going to drive the same car at 65 or 70 that you do now. Maybe there's alternative transportation options depending on the city you live in, that type of thing. So yeah, think about what are you going to need when you retire, and at 5 and 10 year increments. If you're going to travel, is it realistic to travel at 80? Well, then what does that income look like? So you can kind of project those things. So yeah, I would recommend people do that.
Well, we've talked about some of the fun reasons for working, or there's just a wide variety, but there also are some financial reasons why someone might want to work. So there's financial reasons or considerations, such as maybe savings that aren't that substantial.
Yeah. Or maybe you just, you want to help a college, one of your grandchildren go to college, or you didn't save enough. There are individuals out there who have to keep working even after they're eligible for their 100% benefit. They don't have enough in savings, and so they do have to keep working as long as they possibly can. And so it's really important at that point, if you find yourself in that situation and you're having to work, that you do find something that you enjoy doing and want to do, because you're going to be working for a long time. And it's unfortunate, but that is the reality. And I would recommend also talking to a tax advisor. There's some tax, benefits to writing medical expenses off, those types of things. So really educate yourself on what retirement is going to look like for you. And if you're in that situation where you can't retire, it's even more important to go and talk. Don't think you shouldn't talk to a financial advisor. You shouldn't talk to your tax guy. Because you should, because there may be something out there that can help you go ahead and get retired, so you don't have to work full time at least.
Well, and I understand that sometimes there's a delay because of health coverage and wanting a particular, say for example, type of health coverage. I've talked to people who've said, I don't want to retire yet because I want to have the surgery before I retire.
Yeah, that's once again knowing your benefit, educating yourself on your policy, and can you carry your policy into retirement? Some organizations will cover their employees after retirement, and it's not a COBRA policy, it's just a benefit that they allow them. So, and then they still can collect their Medicare benefits, but they do deduct from It's like having a primary and a secondary insurance policy. So, yeah, I mean, all those things play into effect. If you have Medicare A, that covers your hospitals, but it doesn't cover rehab stays or doctor's appointments, and I believe it's Part D that covers prescriptions. So the Medicare health institution has different layers, and you really have to know what you're paying for, and don't automatically re-enroll. So if you're collecting Social Security and you have Medicare benefits, when it's time for open enrollment for Medicare, really go back and reevaluate every year what policy is good for you and where you're at. Because you may be able to get a less expensive policy. So, yeah.
What about delaying receiving Social Security benefits? Now, you've already said there's no benefit to not receiving your benefits after age 70.
Right. So the sooner you collect, you only get a portion of your benefit. I think it's like if you start collecting at 62, you get 30% of your 100%. And you can't go back. So once you start collecting it, that's the amount you collect. So if I'll start collecting at 62, but then when I hit 67, I'll get the 100%. I do not believe it works that way. You're going to get 30% of your benefit, period, for the rest of your retirement because you chose to collect that benefit earlier than if you collected at 67. You get the 100%, so you're always going to collect 100%. Now, like I said, if you work and you're collecting, you could be penalized. So you really want to balance that, and I believe they have worksheets for that. They do tax it just like a paycheck, and then you could possibly pay income taxes at the end of the year, like you do now, or you don't. It just depends.
Yeah. You mentioned income taxes. So I would think that withholding would be a pretty big consideration, especially if you're retired and you're working part-time.
Right, and your income, so if you have a pension and you have all these things, so there may not be a Social Security benefit to not collecting your Social Security after 70, but if you're well-to-do, I imagine there is a tax benefit to not collecting. So once again, it goes back to planning with a financial advisor, talking to the tax person, because once you start collecting it, you pay taxes on it. So everybody's situation is different. So yeah, there's pros and cons to everything. Social Security is one of them. So, and everybody's different.
Well, we were talking a little bit earlier about the things that we wish we knew when we were maybe a little bit younger. Just working with the population that you work with, what are some of the things you've heard that clients said they wish they knew?
We were talking about the military thing. I think people know that if they have a military career, the benefit is college education. A good chunk of it can be paid for. But I have met individuals that are in their late 30s, early 40s, and they're retiring with a full retirement from the military because they went in their summer of their junior year in high school, their senior year in high school, and then they went to college. And so the military, one individual I know, he did the ROTC program here at UNL. And so he was, I believe it's an enlisted for a couple years of high school, went right into college, went into the ROTC program. So when he was done, he was an officer, and now he went in at 18 and he's 48, yeah, 48. So he's got 20 years? No, 38. He's got 20 years in the military. So he's gonna retire with a full benefit package from the military. As an officer, I wish I would have known that. Mm-hmm. I would have been like, I can do that. So it's just not college that it paid for, but it's also funding his retirement. And his second career, he's very much is something he wanted to do. So he'll work another 20 years and collect those wages, and he's not even counting He's just banking his military retirement. That's his plan. So I think there's a gap in the different programs that are out there and the benefits to military career or getting college paid for healthcare. You hear that a lot. I think when we're younger, time goes, we don't have enough time and we're in a hurry. And so we don't think about those things, about really sitting down and picking what is financially going to benefit me in 50 years. You don't think about that when you're younger. You're thinking about, I got to get my 4-year college degree, and then I gotta get a job, and I'll think about that later. But the gap in education is, you are going to turn 50 someday, and what does that look like? And I think it's interesting. There's a lot of apps now for kids to start saving. I think it's starting to pick up because we didn't talk about savings, and when I was younger in my family, it was just assumed, I think. And so I think we need to do a better job of educating our young people on what is retirement really going to look like, because it's a stage in life. So you know what you're going to be a mom, or you're going to get married, and those types of things. But even with Social Security, you can collect your spouse's benefits if they're more than your benefits, but you can't collect both. Mm-hmm. And that's if your spouse is deceased. Mm-hmm. So children can collect. So if you have children and your spouse passes away, your children can collect a Social Security benefit. So there's all these things out there, and those people are far from retirement. So so just educate and look at all the options that are available, and don't be afraid to ask questions. And when you pick your career, what will that career benefit me in retirement? So.
Well, you mentioned children getting the benefit, and I believe exes get a benefit for all those exes out there who never remarried.
Yeah, and so that's interesting. You have to apply for that, but yes, so I believe it is for if you were married to someone and you never remarried, but the ex-spouse has passed away. If that is more than your Social Security, you can collect that, I believe, yes. So, I mean, you just have to go to the website and look at that. There's also a burial benefit too. I believe if someone dies and has younger children, it's a $225 burial. But so yeah, there are benefits out there. So the sooner you look on the Social Security site, probably the better.
Skylar, what would you want people to know from the caregiver side?
Sorry, what was that?
From the caregiver side?
From our caregiver side?
Is there anything that you want people to know about caregiving, or that you wish people knew?
It's a fun job. I mean, I've done it myself in college. I was a caregiver for a different company. It's a fun job. Like Shan was saying, you're going places, and the whole point of our caregivers is to make our seniors feel independent, which I feel they struggle at that point. And so I really do feel it's rewarding. Anybody can do it. We offer paid training, so anybody with any background or no experience at all definitely could do it. And at the end of the day, it's probably one of the most rewarding careers you could ever have, and you can make it a career because we have our franchise office and there's our corporate office all in Omaha. So there's many people that have started as a caregiver that have worked their way all the way up to franchise owners. And so there's a career path. It's really just the starting point for a lot of people, even seniors. Even if you want to become a franchise owner, you can start off as a caregiver as well.
Now, Shan, we had talked another time. You both say that it's this being a caregiver can be at any age, but wasn't there a caregiver who was in their 70s?
We did. When I first started, she started to work for Home Instead when it was her second career. She started at 65, and she actually retired. She was 80, 85 when she retired here recently. And she did a lot of companionship, where she would go in and just keep people company. They'd play cards. They'd do stuff together in the home. She had a lot of friendships. So yeah, there's no limit. We don't discriminate against age, so yeah. And don't think you're ever too old.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, because we have a system. We are going to match you up with someone that you can realistically care for and have stuff in common. So yeah, she was, I want to say she was 85, and she had done 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, I think you just answered it. We have, as I mentioned, we save time at the end for if you have any questions. And this one says, I am interested in possibly working at home instead. What kind of job opportunities are there?
Like Sky said, from the caregiver all the way up to the global headquarters, you can build a career path. You can start working for us as early as 19. And it could end up, you could stay with us until you retire, or if you want it for a second career. Yeah, so apply.
Here's another question. As a retiree, what's the first step in starting my second career?
Getting your resume out there on Indeed and applying for jobs that you find interesting to you. I would definitely make it something that you're passionate about at that point.
Yeah.
Don't just get a job to get a job. Find something that really interests you, but get your resume out there and apply where you think. I'd say shoot for the stars at that point.
Well, and there's a
Wherever you
lot
wanna
of organizations out there, companies that just write resumes. And so I just worked with a gentleman who he wanted to go back in the workforce, and so he paid and had his resume because he's like, I don't know. And he's had several interviews, and he's doing just what Scott, he's applying for those jobs that he wants to, especially in Nebraska, because there's just, the unemployment rate is so low that employers are willing to train, paid training, and they're valuing that aging adults experiences, just not work experience, but life experience, problem solving. They value that quite a bit. So yeah, I agree with Sky. Look and think about what you'd like to do, look and see what's out there, and then just start applying. Because if you don't get hired for what you're passionate about, employers that interview will give you direction on what you need. So you'll see, they'll tell you, well, a little training in this would help, or maybe take a program on Word or Excel or something like that. But yeah, I agree, go for it.
Well, and I would say from an educator side, take some time to explore what maybe you're interested in. I have a friend, and she had been looking forward to retiring. She retired, and before she retired, she said, I have this fantasy. I'm going to be painting in the morning, and I'm going to be playing the piano in the afternoon. And I said, it's been 2 years, and you haven't done that. She said, well, I really guess I don't want to do that. And so maybe exploring what you'd really like to do versus this romanticized idea.
Right. Can you play the piano? You might want to, right. And if you're passionate about those things, how can you take your passions and engage them in the workforce? If she does she likes the piano, do piano lessons, or she likes to paint and she's good, take a painting class or apply to teach a painting class at a local college. So yeah, the sky's the limit. But if you plan it, do it. Actually do it.
The sky's the limit, and take a big, bold step and try something that maybe that you've always wanted to try, because there are so many approaches.
Well, and nobody's going to take your birthday. So yeah, so don't be afraid, be courageous. Learn something new, because we always learn. You learn something new just about every day. So it shouldn't stop just because you're retired. So yeah.
Some of the comments that we got for this show was there were concerns about ageism in the workforce.
Like I said, employers are embracing the aging adult. So can I say it's not going to happen? No. But I don't think, as I think Sky can attest this too, employers are valuing the aging adult more than they ever have. They don't have a choice. It's the largest growing workforce. I think it will be the largest, in the research, 10 years?
Yeah.
In 10 years. So I think employers are adapting and have adapted to that. So like I said, can I say it's never going to happen? No. And are there some jobs that, no, you can't do it 67 that you could do at 22. Yes, those do exist, but that wouldn't be a concern. I wouldn't be concerned about that.
I wouldn't let that stop you from applying for a job at all.
Yeah, because if they can't fit you into the job you applied for, they may have something else for you. So, and it's building a relationship with an employer that may come in handy down the road.
Do you find that there's a mindset that needs to be contended with, like how you see yourself and your identity as you're looking at these things? So for example, might a senior say, I can't do this, I'm this age, or so is it a mindset that maybe has to be contended with as well?
Yeah, I think so. You have to be realistic about, do you have physical challenges? You know, but yes, if you think you're too old, you're gonna act too old. But if you're young at heart, you're gonna behave as such. So stay active, those types of things. But yeah, it's a mindset too, and it's also family. Sometimes children change roles and they almost hinder their parents, like, oh, you shouldn't be working or you can't do this. So, you know, you got to get around some of those barriers, but I would just stay as active as you can realistically. But yeah, that's mindset.
We have another question from the chat. Any suggestions for alternatives to Medicare for those who aren't 65 but are ready to cut their hours or retire?
Wow. I talked to financial advisors. I know that there's investments that pay monthly, depending on the investment type and that type of thing, but the best bet would be to talk to a financial advisor and see what your savings is now and where you have to be. But I would think there's lots of opportunities, and you just have to know your income and plan your expenses, and you know, if you want something, how bad do you want it, and decisions and choices and all those things.
Well, Shan Wilkins and Skylar Roberts, I just want to thank you so much for being here today and providing just this wealth of information about aging and the workforce. I just want to mention some shows that we have coming up. On April 7th, it's all about smart technology in aging, the technological advances that are directly benefiting the aging. Also on May 12th, we'll take a look at estate planning, and coming up on June 9th, consumer fraud. So a lot of topics relative to the aging population. Thank you so much for joining us today here live at MCC North Express, and we will see you next month.